So I know it's been some time since I did a video. I just had a bit of a health challenge I was dealing with. But I want to show you something I've been working on that I've been using in my practice for the last little while. And given that I might need to be taking some time off my practice, I thought I should share it with you to see if anyone's interested in having access to this really cool tool. So it's a tool that I've been using in my practice. I've essentially uploaded a whole bunch of um, past agreements, cases that I've come across. And I'm using that as a basis to work with AI more effectively. And so this is called the Agreement Writer. And it's a very simple tool. I can simply say, I want let's say an asset purchase agreement for, let's say a dental clinic. And what are some issues I need to be thinking about? Okay. And so AI is again, we know that AI is a really powerful tool. The challenge, however, is that when we're using AI, oftentimes it hallucinates. And so what I've essentially done is that I've decreased the likelihood of that happening by giving it more context to work with. And so here, essentially, if you look at it, it'll talk through some stuff. And so it'll say like, we need to know what the scope of assets purchased or whatnot. So this is usually what I would use as a form of checklist that I would go through with my clients to make sure that they've given me the permission to draft. And what's even really cool about the tool is that once I do that, I can say, well, you know what, let's say draft a full asset purchase agreement. I can say like, look, give me a shell agreement. Okay. So what I would typically do is I would ask for a shell agreement that I can use as a starting point. And then the way that it would work is that it will then give me, again, based on what my typical agreement, it'll give me a base agreement to work with, right? And so it's fairly strong, okay? And again, it's because of the context I've given it. I'm sure you can do it with Claude or whatnot, but again, this is purely a tool to decrease the likelihood of things going wrong, right? And because I'm giving it my base agreement to work with, it's working fairly well, right? Now, what's cool about the tool is that, and again, all of this is based on my standard agreement. You would obviously give it your context, your agreement to work with, and it'll go from there. So we determine termination, which is 10. Next, I think we dispute resolution. And then after that, it should be at the signing page, right? Now, oftentimes, especially when you're drafting an agreement, you don't really necessarily know. This might be a new practice area that you're getting into, or it might be a new industry. The client might be from an industry you don't get. So you might want to say like, look, what are vendor favorable provisions in this context? What are purchase agreement? And so this would be something that I would do, like say, how do I negotiate an agreement that's more favorable to my client versus somebody else, right? And because I've given it sufficient context to work with, it will go through it and it'll say like, look, where this is coming from. Now, again, and the way that it works, it's using both case law as well as additional context. And frankly, it's using its own knowledge as well. But it's less likely to hallucinate because they're giving it context, right? And again, this is something that I've been thinking about though well over a year now, how to make AI work more effectively for solo lawyers. So now we've got that, which is great. But let's say I want to know some case law. So let's say what case law can be used to justify the above. Now, what's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to using AI in the legal profession is that we don't always know if the cases are that the knowledge you're using is based on fact or if it's being made up. And so what I've done here is that I've actually connected to Canly's database. I can't scrape Canly, obviously, but what I can do is using that Canly API, it'll give a summary of a decision. And then I'm taking the summary of that decision and using it as a means to sort of like pointers, as it were, right? And so what it'll do is it'll search cases, it'll get more information about that, and it will talk about, here's the case law that you need thinking about, right? So it's given some things to be thinking about in terms of these different issues. Okay. Now, I'm just going to stop it here just because of context reasons. But what's even cooler, and this is what gets cooler, give me supporting URLs. And so anytime that the agreement is putting forward, or it gives you a case, I will typically ask the AI to give me the case, and oftentimes it can't find it. And so what, in essence, I've been able to do with the system I've created in the backend, that again, I've been using for a fair bit now, is it'll actually, or it should actually give me the URLs. And so I can then quickly go into, so if you go, so there we go. So this is the actual URL. So if I click on each of these cases, it'll actually go into a different screen, so I'm just going to click on each of these links right now. Okay, so I'm just going to go through each of these links. So again, this is SmileCore, Nasser. So just keep in mind of the name. So like, I'm just going to click each of these links. You're not seeing it right now, but what I'm going to do is, maybe in post, I'll show these grids. So like I'll go here. You can even say, so let's say that, so let's say draft different versions of the descriptive covenants, provision, vendor favorable, purchaser favorable, and advanced for my review. Okay. So you can actually build out whatever you want. And you could even use this as a tool to build up a precedent library. You could build it as, and again, the key part here is that all of this is AI generated. So you just got to keep in mind that you've still got to be the lawyer. But if you are using it as a negotiation tool, you can use it in lots of really cool ways. So, yeah, hopefully that is helpful. Yeah, so let's see if this works. So if we look at, this is done it this way. Okay. So non-competes, non-solicitation. So this is vendor favorable, purchaser favorable, non-solicitation. This is great. This is given a table of what the differences are. Yeah, so that's the approach that works. And then like, let's say that give me a provision that requires vendor to stay on as a consultant for a period of a year. So it's the sky's the limit on how you use the tool. And again, it's something that frankly has caused me, it's a really cool exercise in seeing how well that this tool can work, but it's also been really scary. So yeah, so that's the way that this works. It's a really simple tool that has a lot of value, especially if you're a solo law firm and you simply don't have the ability to get all these really expensive subscriptions. And the best part is that It integrates with your existing AI tools. It's not a whole new app that you need to be buying, subscribing to, as long as you have something like Claude or ChatGPT or Google Gemini. It's something that actually plugs in to your existing databases, and then you can work from there. This is the so-called, I guess, solicitor transactional side. Um, I'm working on a tool that's also litigation focused. There are cases and advocacy, so you could build up pleadings as well. So while I took a little bit of time off my practice, or lessen the workload in my practice, this is something that I thought I should share with you. So again, if you're interested in this, reach out to me, and then we can take from there. Okay, chat soon. Cheers.